Vitaly says, hey, Luke, what are the best way to learn conditionals? So first of all, what is a conditional? Well, there are different types of conditionals, but usually we say conditionals are those sentences that have ifs in them, generally. So there's something that might be this way or this way, depending on something else. Simple example, if it rains tomorrow, I will stay home. That would be a very simple example of a conditional. So we have an if, which tells us that something may or may not happen. Then we want to explore the possibility of what may or may not happen after that does or does not happen. So we use if for that, right? And we can flip them around. The cool thing about conditionals is often you can reverse them. You have to be aware of the comma if you're writing them, but you can reverse them. So for example, if it rains tomorrow, I will stay home. For that one, you say, if it rains tomorrow, if you're writing it, comma, I will stay home. But then if you flip it around and say, I will stay home if it rains tomorrow, then you don't have a comma. So that's something to be aware of. Now, that's just one example. There are different types of conditionals. One type of conditional would be to use a would, right? Or were or would together. If I were going, I would bring snacks. That means I'm not going. If I were going, I would bring snacks. So something is not happening in the future. But if it were going to happen, I will tell you what I would do. If I were you, the common expression that we use to give advice, if I were you, I would. Classic conditional for giving advice. That's a different type. So there are different types of conditionals. There are also ones for exploring the past, right? If I hadn't done this, I wouldn't be. That would be an example of how we use conditionals to show regret or to express a feeling of thankfulness, because if I hadn't done this, I wouldn't have met this person. That would express maybe being glad that this happened and exploring the idea in your mind of what if it hadn't happened. But the real question here is, how do you learn these? I'm just talking through a few basic examples to give you a sense of it. This is by no means a final lesson about conditionals. I would encourage you to explore that in more depth. Really, the question is, how do you learn these? And to that, I would say, in the same way that you learn any other thing grammatically, by example. The best way to learn English grammar, like conditionals, is with examples. Do you need to know which one is the first conditional or which one is the second conditional? Do you need to know that? No, you absolutely don't need to know that. What you need to know is how it's used and how you can use it and what it's accomplishing. So how do you do that? Well, there you just find examples that you understand. You have to be able to understand it. So you find an example in an article or somewhere online or in a book that you're reading or somewhere in a movie, but maybe it's better from an article or a book so that you can actually see the sentence there written down. You can copy it into your notes, for example. You've got it there. You understand what it means. Now practice that. And notice differences between different kinds. So if you see one that says, if I were you, I would, then you understand it. Write down one that's similar, that uses, if I were you, I would. Or maybe then try to play with it a little bit. If you were me, what would you do? To ask the question. That's similar. It's using the same basic style, except it's now using it as a question. Then the answer would be, if I were you, I would. So by writing down real examples, number one, you know that that's correct, because if it weren't correct, it probably wouldn't be in this article or book. So you know you're learning the right thing. Number two, you're seeing how it's used in real life. Okay, someone's actually communicating with this. And then you're practicing it directly by making your own examples or variations based on that you can check it against. If you find 15, 20 different sentences that use if in different ways, then you can start to really get a feeling for it with your own examples. Never needing to know which one is the first conditional. Never needing to know that it's even called a conditional, right? Who needs to really know that? English teachers? I mean, really, what you need to know is how to use things, and what you do when you learn how to use things is to look at what other people do and then try to do it yourself, and then you know it. And then when you're in a conversation, it just comes out of your mouth correctly because you practiced lots of examples. So don't put your attention too much on knowing the terminology. Instead, focus on how to use it and making your own examples based on real examples. That would be my advice for learning any type of grammar, including conditionals. I hope that answers your question, Vitaly. It's a good one. If you guys haven't already done so, don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. And also check out my full courses in the links in the description.